Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to both Syracuse football and basketball postgame. You'll see the label on the screen says football, but we wanted to flip on the basketball page as well because both Syracuse football and Syracuse basketball lose. A sad Saturday for Syracuse, to say the least. The football team falls to NC State 41-17. The Orange fall to 5-6 on the season and have one more chance to ensure itself a bowl bid next week, which will not be easy considering Syracuse will be playing Pittsburgh, who clinched a bid in the ACC championship game and has been a pretty good team all season long. Kenny Pickett, one of the better quarterbacks, not only in the ACC, but in the country. So a tall task for a Orange offense that stalled, was predictable, could not throw the football, and just had a bad day in Raleigh. Meanwhile, for the first time since 1962, when John Fitzgerald Kennedy was president of the United States and Jim Boeheim was set to enroll as a freshman at Syracuse University, Colgate takes down Syracuse. Final score at the Carrier Dome, 100-85, as Colgate, which was down 17-2 early in the game, started hitting their threes. Syracuse's perimeter defense really challenged by a good Colgate team. And folks, if you had listened to me on the radio this week, I wrote a column on Friday, my quick takes column. I called this. I didn't call the win. Okay. I don't want to say I predicted a win, but what I did write and what I did say on the radio is don't be surprised if Colgate wins this game. Don't be surprised if Colgate makes it competitive. They've got a lot of really good shooters, two of the top 3-point shooters in the country, a couple of big men that could give Syracuse trouble. Colgate missed a ton of threes to start the game, but they made them in the second half. So Syracuse delivered an early blow, and they go to the Battle for Atlantis next week where they're going to face some pretty darn good basketball teams. So we are crossing over here, folks, and I'm just going to start to highlight some of your comments as we go here because you guys are certainly fired up here. So as Ron says here, I'm just here for the meltdowns. Okay. Jermaine, terrible, terrible, terrible. Scott, I'll say it again this week. You can't win running the same 5 plays. That's a football comment. Doug says that Jimmy needs to retire. Get out of the zone. It's not working. Rough day for hoops and basketball, says David. Sad times for the Orange. Jeff says Syracuse football should just play Syracuse basketball. Bet they could score 50-plus points there. Brian says pretty hard to win when you lose 33 points at the 3-point line, giving up 10 more rebounds and 13 more assists. That's a basketball comment there. Doug says it's time for Dino to go. The comments are coming hot and heavy here, folks. So I'm trying to keep up as best as I can here in a crossover situation here. Let's see. Dennis thinks that you lose to Colgate badly. It's time for Jim to retire. Michelle just says a frustrating game for the Orange. Back and forth. No, you got to go. No, you got to go. No, you got to go. This whole court's out of order. Mary Ellen said, sad day for Orange fans today. So I'm just going to leave it open to you, let you guys vent a little bit here. So I'll be honest with you. I was more on the football front today. I was on football duty for syracuse.com, my instant observations post, and for recap duty tomorrow, doing some other things during the game. So both not pleasant, to say the least. I was keeping an eye on the basketball stuff while focusing on football. So let's just kind of cross over both here. You guys that watch the basketball game more can, certainly jump in the comments and kind of take me through it here. The football game, the floodgates opened in the second quarter. It was actually a 0-0 score going into the second quarter. The first quarter was terrible. A lot of flags, a lot of penalties. Syracuse football got a ton of help from the officials. On one drive, 3 penalties extended the drive. Syracuse couldn't take advantage of it. But second quarter came, floodgates open. NC State scores 28 points in the half. That includes, so at one point, Syracuse cuts the score down to 14-7 on a Sean Tucker 55-yard touchdown. The next ensuing kickoff, NC State runs it back 97 yards for a touchdown. Bam Knight, second straight game, third time this year, he's had a kickoff return for a touchdown for NC State. NC State ends up getting a touchdown right before the half to make it 28-7 on a play where Kingsley Jonathan had Devin Leary, NC State's quarterback, wrapped up, couldn't get him down, and NC State went on to win 41-17. Schrader added a 48-yard touchdown later. Congratulations to Sean Tucker. He's now the single-season rushing champion in Syracuse football history. He passed Joe Morris by doing that. Okay, but that's the only thing that went right for Syracuse football. Garrett Schrader went 8 of 20 for 63 yards. This is a predictable and stale Syracuse offense that is really limited by the fact that Garrett Schrader cannot throw the football. He had a couple of big throws earlier in the season. He had a throw against Clemson, 62 yards. Trevor Pena, Syracuse ended up losing that game by 3, but he made that throw. Hung in there and made a tough throw against Virginia Tech that led Syracuse to victory. He's made a couple of throws here and there, but by and large, boy, the numbers speak for themselves. He's now thrown for, if I'm going in the right order here, 50 yards against Boston College at a game that they won because Sean Tucker had 207 yards and the defense played great, and they win that game 21-6. They come out of the bye week against Louisville. Schrader has 46 yards passing, and the whole offense was shut down that day by Louisville, who put 28 points on the board against Syracuse before you can blink an eye. Same thing that NC State did in one quarter of football. And in this game, 8 of 20 for 63 yards. The Syracuse offense is predictable. It's stale. They don't mix things up. They don't do play action. They don't throw to the tight end. They don't do misdirection. They don't run screen passes. It's just meat and potatoes, Schrader and Tucker. And NC State had an easy day on the defensive side of the ball. They just had to sit there, stack the box, and dare Syracuse to throw the football. So the Orange, they've got one more opportunity to go to a bowl game. Maybe Pittsburgh comes in and maybe downshifts a little bit next week because they clinched a bid in the ACC championship game. But this is not like the NFL. You don't rest your starters in that situation. They're going to come in and they're going to come into play. Kenny Pickett still needs numbers to keep pace in the Heisman race. And, this Pat Narduzzi teams aren't just going to lay over and die. How does Syracuse stays competitive in that game against one of the best quarterbacks in the country is beyond me. So more than likely the football team is going to finish 5-7, and John Wildhack is going to have to try and justify and sell bringing Dino Babers back for another season if this team does not go to a bowl game, right? Meanwhile, on the basketball side of things, listen, this was the big weakness on this Syracuse team that we had to keep an eye on. Defense. Rebounding as well, but I think we kind of built in the rebounding deficit for Syracuse. This is just a Syracuse team. My colleague Donna DeToda has done a great job writing about this the past few years. They've been ranked in the 300s in the past few years. It's not like a blip on the radar screen. They have consistently been a team that just doesn't rebound. When you rebound out of the zone and certain disadvantages that Syracuse has, they're just not a good rebounding team. Colgate's got a couple of big men, a couple of twin towers, two of the biggest players in a combo or otherwise that Syracuse could face this year. So you build in the rebounding deficit, but the one thing you had to be wary of was the perimeter defense. And I guess that's always the case with Syracuse. Colgate started off this game. What I did see, and you guys, fill in the comments here as you watched it, they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat. I believe they missed correct me if I'm wrong, guys, Colgate missed their first 12 3-pointers in this game, but then they got it going. And I'll pull up the box score while we're talking about it here just to give you a sense of it. But Joe Girard played really well, was hitting his threes. It felt like maybe they went away from him late in that game when they should have kept going to him, right? But, man, defense tells the tale here because typically what you see is teams hit a lot of threes. Like Lafayette actually hit 5 3-pointers in the first half against Syracuse, but then the Orange blew their doors off, right? Second game of the year, Drexel did the same thing. Drexel had 7 3-pointers at halftime, but Syracuse made a defensive adjustment and completely shut them down in the second half. Colgate got better shooting the ball and shooting the three as the game went here. So let's jump in on the basketball side of things and just give you some numbers for this one as Colgate beat Syracuse for the first time since 1962. These two teams have played 173 times in their history with this game tonight, and Syracuse had won 54 straight until tonight. A historic win for Colgate. Colgate fans in Central New York are really celebrating this one tonight. Jack Ferguson for Colgate was 6 of 13 from three-point range. He leads the way with 25 points. Nellie Cummings, great player for Colgate, 6 of 13 from three-point range. He has 18 points. So it was really those two, Ferguson and Cummings, combining for 12. There was a little bit filled in here and there. Tucker Richardson got going late in the game, hits 3 3-pointers. So Colgate, all told, finishes 18 of 43 from three-point range in this game. They shoot 32 of 70 overall. That's 45%. So to look on the Syracuse side of things, the Orange were 7 of 23 from three-point range. We mentioned Girard, who was hot from three-point range, had started the season making 9 straight threes, kills it for Syracuse, 27 points. Buddy Boeheim finishes with 19, 2 of 6 from three-point range. Jimmy Boeheim, 0 of 3 from three-point range. He finishes with 11 points, and then it was kind of a box score scattering from there. Jesse Edwards looking at it here at 8 points and 8 rebounds. Cole Swider, who's been an all-around talent for Syracuse the first 2 games, not just a shooter, down by his recent standards. He had 8 points, 2 rebounds, had 4 fouls on the game as well. So it just goes to show you, if you don't have all 4 perimeter players in Girard, Boeheim, and Swider getting into the game, and it looks like Syracuse didn't have much offensively inside as well. The Orange shoot, just looking at it here, give me a second here, just give you a comparison. So Syracuse shoots 43%, Colgate shoots 45%. So those numbers were even, but where it starts to, the gap widens, if you will, Colgate out-rebounds Syracuse 44 to 34. So that's something Syracuse is going to have to be wary of all year. They're going to get out-rebounded by a lot of teams. They're going to face teams that can shoot threes. The difference is Colgate did enough to combo inside and out play, right? So again, full disclosure, guys, I was on football duty. I was watching that more than basketball. You watch basketball, as RJ says, out-rebounded, out-hustled for loose balls, gave Colgate too many second chance points. As Blake notes here, Syracuse was up 17-2. They lose 185. That's a 30-point blowout swing. Brian brings it up. The bench center wasn't handled. Woodard, it was a good player for Colgate. So all told, just a pretty crappy Saturday night if you're a Syracuse sports fan. And somebody asked me, when's the last time there was a bad day like this when football and basketball crossed over? I can't really think of it off the top of my head. That's something I want to look up for a column I'm going to write tomorrow morning. The usual recap is going to kind of combine these two things. So I can't think of one off the top of my head, frankly. I mean, losing to a team you haven't lost to since 1962, and that's no disrespect to Colgate. Colgate's going to make their 3rd NCAA tournament in 4 years. They've got a lot of great perimeter shooters. We mentioned the big guys inside. This is a good team. Colgate got screwed when they played NC State. I don't know if you guys saw that game. There was a bad call at the end of that game. They should have beaten NC State. So they should, at this point, have 2 ACC wins. They did lose to Cornell. They stubbed their toe against Cornell earlier this week. They went 6 of 32 from three-point range in that game. I believe Woodard was in foul trouble in that game as well. So they stubbed their toe, but boy, did they bounce back today. And as Michelle brings up here too, the women's basketball team lost in the battle for Atlantis. They're also in the battle for Atlantis. They got beat pretty good by South Florida today. So all told, pretty bad day on the Syracuse athletic front, to say the least. Todd notes that the middle of the zone wide open, really concerning, easy entry, then slow rotations. Kathleen says Boeheim boy is not going to win with that 2-3 zone. Christian notes that the basketball team looked really slow and not athletic at all. So what we're talking about here tonight is Syracuse football needs a quarterback on the football side. Basketball side, they've got to tighten up the defense and just kind of do what they can do rebounding wise, right? So let's talk about football for a minute. Look, Garrett Schrader was the right person at the right time for Syracuse football. Tommy DeVito wasn't doing it. They probably could have used him tonight just to get the passing game going in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, look, DeVito transferred for a reason. DeVito, it just didn't work out. Okay, there's nothing you can do about that now. Syracuse can't throw the football at all. Schrader has made a few throws this season, but we saw it again tonight. We saw it last week against Louisville, and again, even in a win a couple weeks ago against Boston College. Schrader is slow through his progressions. He telegraphs his throws. He threw a really bad pick six, just a pitch and catch with Drake Thomas, linebacker for NC State. I like Garrett Schrader. He plays hard. He's certainly a threat in the running game. Syracuse makes no bones about the fact they're a ground and pound team. But the problem is they're predictable. The problem is they're stale. And the problem is there's no creativity. There's no misdirection. There's no throwing to the tight end. Use the short passing game. If you have a quarterback that can't throw deep consistently, you can at least get the ball in the hands of your tight end, Luke Benson. Devon Cooper's a great receiver in short yardage. Courtney Jackson is great after the catch. He's been a little banged up as of late, but get the ball in his hands and get the offense going and then take your shots, right? Damian Alford's a great deep threat for this team. There is talent at wide receiver for Syracuse. There's talent there. I mean, we're not talking about the talent level maybe NC State has or Wake Forest has, but there are talented players there. The offensive line's been good enough. There was one play, if you guys saw the football game, Garrett Schrader, like I could have done a hard count to 5 Mississippi, right? 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. That's how much time he had to either throw the ball or get rid of the football. Just kind of stayed in the pocket, basically panicked, and got sacked. And that happened like 2 or 3 times in that game. Even when Schrader had open wide receivers, couldn't get the ball to him. So at no point did we saw Jacobian Morgan late in the game, but we didn't see Jacobian Morgan. I'm not really sure where Justin Lamson is at in his development. I hear a lot of good things about the player he could be. I don't know if he's necessarily ready to come in, but what we're starting to see here, folks, is Garrett Schrader was a stopgap. Garrett Schrader came in, he transferred in, wanted an opportunity. He's won some games for this team. He's kept them competitive, but you can't have a quarterback that doesn't throw the ball. Especially look around the ACC. Look at the quarterback you're playing next week in Kenny Pickett at Pittsburgh. Look at the quarterback you face tonight, Devin Leary from NC State. That guy is a pure pocket passer, 100%. And he even managed to scramble and that one touchdown throw where Kingsley Jonathan had him. And that was a bad issue for Syracuse on the football side tonight as well, tackling. So when Bam Knight ran back that kickoff return, Deuce Chestnut tried the shoulder tackle thing. You can't do that. You got to wrap him up and bring him down. They had him. Okay, they had him. It's not like Bam Knight just shot out of a cannon and nobody could catch him. They actually had him. They tried the shoulder tackle, didn't work. On the touchdown throw right before halftime, Devin Leary was in the grasp of Kingsley Jonathan, who just ran right by him, got a firm grip on his shoulder, should have made the tackle, but ran right by him. Leary throws the touchdown pass. Josh Black got hurt in this game. He was seen on the sideline in the second half with his left arm in a sling, and you'd hate to see his career come to an end. The super senior, the team leader, one of the more active personalities for this team in terms of social media, and just a great guy and a great leader. And you'd hate to see his career end like that, but it looks like he's pretty doubtful for next week against Pittsburgh based on the severity of that injury. We mentioned Tucker got the record. He got over 100 yards. He did not get back on top in terms of leading the nation in rushing. He needed 137 yards to do that today, but he's still a top 3 talent there. But man, if Syracuse loses to Pittsburgh next week, there's going to be a lot of questions about, there's already those questions. Let's not, put it all in that Pitt game, but they still do have a shot to clinch a bowl game. So think of that thin line you're straddling right now. If you're John Wildhack, if you're Dino Babers, if, any other names you want to put on this list, if you clinch a bowl game, you barely get over the finish line, and you're going to get another year to come back and keep it going. And you'll do it at least with less reservations from the fan base. But if you're 5-7 and you miss out, how can you sell that the program's going in the right direction, particularly with a quarterback who can't throw the ball and offense, supposed to be an offensive guru as a coach, right? Orange is the new fast and everything this offense was supposed to be. It's gone the complete opposite direction. Now, Justin Fuente of Virginia Tech, while you can't make apples to apples comparisons here, they had seen enough after 6 years. And a lot of the same reputation was there. Fuente was supposed to be an offensive-minded coach, right? A quarterback guru. And by the end, that was just a bad offensive team. As Syracuse beat them 33-30. But, that's not exactly an offensive juggernaut that they faced there. So there's a lot of questions out there. Charles says, just get rid of them all. Fire everybody. Everybody's in that kind of mood tonight. That's why we're here. So you guys can vent after this situation. As Christopher notes here, I feel sorry for the super seniors, but at least they get to leave. We're stuck with this team and Babers. You can tell people are pretty frustrated out there. As Dan notes here, putting this one out there, but if Syracuse decides to fire Babers, it's an uphill battle. They'll have to compete with some big schools for a quality head coach. Virginia Tech, LSU, USC, Washington State, UW, Washington, TCU, Texas Tech. Dan, you make a heck of a point there. Let's not forget, too, let's say John Wildhack does make a change. You now have to pay Dino Babers for 3 years, 2022, 2023, 2024, to not coach your team and then hire a whole new staff. And folks, Syracuse does not have the money to do that. I mean, they have the money if you really want it, right? If somebody really important steps in and says, we got the money, they got the money, right? Syracuse has $1 billion endowment. Now, endowment money is not just like petty cash, right? That money is designated for certain things. So you have the money if you really need it. But by and large, that athletic department does not have the funds and does not have the support to just pay off a coach for the next 3 years and then go hire the next coach, which, as Dan points out, it's going to be stiff competition out there. This is there's 12, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 13. And there's still a week to go. And there's going to be more added to the pool when the season ends next week. And then there's a few games early in December. But who are you competing against? Who do you want? What's the plan to go forward, right? So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. Syracuse was very competitive in a lot of games this year, bounced back from a 1-10 season. But you got to win those games. That's the thing. You can't come up short that many times and keep selling that. Like, hey, no, we're right there. That's the difference. That's why a couple of those games, you win one more of those games. Go back to all those games that came down to the final play, a stretch of 5 straight games decided by 5 points or less. If you got one more of those, you're in a bowl game. And we're not having this conversation. We're expressing some frustration, right? But we're not having this conversation about what it could be. Not only the coaching situation, guys, the transfer portal, right? We've already seen 8 players leave this football team this year, 6 in the transfer portal, 2 just left the team and have not gone into the portal. But 2 this week, Dylan Markowitz at quarterback goes into the portal. Jeff Canton-Arcou, kind of a surprise because he was playing. He's getting on the field. Usually playing time is the issue why these players go into the portal, right? But he left with 2 games to go, right? Kind of an odd thing there, but that's the new world we're in. Every Sunday, I'm checking Twitter like, okay, who left this week, right? So you got to think about all those things going forward. And one way or the other, no matter who's coaching this team next year, and I do think it is going to be Babers. I don't think John Wildhack's going to pull the trigger no matter what happens next week against Pittsburgh, just, my opinion. You got to find a quarterback. You got to find another quarterback in the portal, right? And we were saying the same thing last year to bring in somebody to compete with Tommy DeVito. Again, if Lamson's the guy, we'll see that. I haven't seen enough of them to form an opinion about that. We've seen a little bit of Jacobian Morgan, but if Jacobian Morgan was that good, I'm going to give Dino the benefit of the doubt that he should be out there, right? That he should be playing. So, what a frustrating night for Syracuse sports fans, to say the least, as the basketball team falls to the first time since 1962 to Colgate, 100-85. Football team loses to NC State, 41-17. And look, they've got another chance. Do I think they're going to beat Pittsburgh next week? That is a very tall order. That is a very tall order. Pitt, obviously Kenny Pickett's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And so here's the thing with the Syracuse offense and where it's predictable and stale and stalled right now. Pitt, that's what they do. They stop the run. They are that team, Pat Narduzzi's defense, week in and week out, their philosophy is you are not going to run the football on this team. They sell out to ensure you don't run the ball. Okay. NC State was the 14th rated run defense in the country. Sean Tucker ended up with over 100 yards. 55 of those were on one play. And you got to give him credit for that. That was the one bright spot Syracuse had in this football game. But Pitt's a whole different animal. Now it's at home. The students are going to be out of town. Students have been great this year. The crowd, what kind of crowd are we going to get at the Dome next week? Thanksgiving weekend. A lot of people out of town, going away for the holiday. No students, as I mentioned. Can the crowd kind of rally this team? It's going to be a tall task to slow down Kenny Pickett. You're not going to stop Kenny Pickett. I don't care how good your defense is. That guy's he's going to get some throws on you. Coming into this game today, Kenny Pickett, 67% passer. The numbers are off the charts. There's a reason this guy, if he doesn't win the Heisman, he's going to be in New York at the ceremony. So that's the task ahead for the football team. You got to beat a team that has clinched a berth in the ACC championship game. It's been a ranked team pretty much all year and has, if not the best, one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now. You had two chances coming out of the bye. Louisville didn't win that game. This game tonight didn't win that game. Syracuse gave up 41 points to both of those teams. So they lost to Louisville and NC State. If I could do some quick math here, what was that? By a combined score of like 82-20 in the last 2 weeks. And you're telling me this team somehow, some way is going to rally and beat Pittsburgh next week. On the basketball side of things, look, the good news is they've got some time to work on these issues. The bad news is they're not getting any relief on the schedule coming up. I think Syracuse should beat VCU. VCU has been a good team in recent years. They've been in the tournament. That name that you've heard, right? But they lost a lot of guys from last year's team. And I don't think Syracuse is going to have a lot of trouble with VCU. So then you could end up playing Baylor, the defending national champion. UConn is there. Michigan State is at the battle for Atlantis. So depending on how the bracket shapes up next week, so Syracuse will play Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, no matter what. We'll see what that lineup is. But you're going to face, at the very least, two really good teams with the potential to face two ranked teams at the battle for Atlantis. When Syracuse comes back, they will face Indiana on that Tuesday, which is what? Trying to think what the date is. That November 30th, I believe the date is. So they come back, they play Indiana in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Villanova's a top 5 team right now. You got to face them at Madison Square Garden. Or is that in Brooklyn? I'm not sure where that is, but that's in New York. Georgetown, non-conference schedule. They pulled off a couple wins over Syracuse in recent years. Florida State is early on the ACC schedule. They wedge a couple ACC games in December. You got to face them early on. So as the old expression goes, the hottest fire makes the strongest steel. And Syracuse has some good teams, solid teams up ahead here. There's, Dick Vitale and Doug Gottlieb and all the critics out there that love to say Syracuse plays a cupcake schedule. Not this year, friends. And they learned that tonight by losing to Colgate. 185 final score on the basketball side of things. And again, Colgate's been in the tournament past couple of years. They gave Tennessee all they can handle a couple of years ago. They haven't won in the tournament. But this is going to be, by all accounts, the third year in the last 4 that Colgate makes the tournament. Is it a team that should beat Syracuse? No, it shouldn't, right? But the recipe was there. Colgate hits a lot of threes. They've got a good presence inside. Syracuse is always going to struggle to rebound. They were a little too reliant on some things. So that's going to be the weakness on the Syracuse team. What Syracuse is going to have to do to win is just score in bunches. You need Gerard, any combo of Gerard, Boeheim, Swider to be hitting from the outside. And Joe was really the only one hitting it from the outside tonight. So we saw the weakness there. You've got to be sharp in your perimeter defense. Most of the time, as we saw it just this year in recent games, Drexel and Lafayette, it fizzed out. They hit some threes, but you can't maintain it for 40 minutes. Colgate went the other way. They missed a lot of threes, but then built into it. Didn't stop. Kept coming. Shoot or shoot, right? You go 0 for 12 to start the game from three-point range and end up shooting as well as Colgate did from three-point range, particularly Ferguson and Nellie Cummings hitting 6 apiece. That's all it takes against that Syracuse defense. When you get the open looks in the zone, you got to keep pace on offense, and They couldn't do that tonight. So not going to be the first time I think we have this conversation about the basketball team, but I also think we're going to be talking about a basketball team that wins a lot of games. If anything, we're going to see some high-scoring Syracuse basketball games this year. So buckle up for that. Woo, baby. As Cody notes here, talking basketball here, got to clean up the sloppy passing and shooting, and they're 2-3 happy. They do need a little bit of inside presence there, Cody. I got to agree with that. Like, you want to see Benny Williams develop at a rate where he can be somebody you can count on to score inside. Jesse Edwards has been better offensively. I think he's going to continue to be better offensively. I think Jimmy Boeheim's a threat scoring in the paint as well. There was a time at this game, and you guys can fill me in on this. I didn't see it because I was wrapping up the football column I was writing that was due right at the end of the game. But Jimmy Boeheim, I saw that he got in at center, right? I saw in my Twitter travels and was trying to keep an eye on it a little bit there, but that's how desperate Syracuse got at one point. They had to put Jimmy in at center, which Jim Boeheim, his dad, has said they want to avoid doing at all costs, right? But they had to press, they had to pull all the bags out of the trick, short of the man-to-man, which essentially, when you're in the press, it is man-to-man. But they had to pull out all the tricks just to keep pace with Colgate tonight. So what a Saturday. You know, somebody asked that question, and I really can't think of a Saturday like this. Certainly when you have a team that beats you for the first time since 1962. Football, they've had some bad days in recent years. That's unfortunately for them, not a stunner that the football team would lose a game. But there's always the basketball team, right? Thank God for basketball. It's basketball season. And then on this night anyway, they lost too. So there's always tomorrow, right? Syracuse fans, Battle for Atlantis is going to be very interesting. And that's when we'll join you again, by the way, here on Syracuse Post Game. I'm going to hop on Wednesday night after Syracuse plays VCU. We'll take Thanksgiving off. Probably hop right back on Friday, depending on what time the game is and what the situation is. You know, we got to see how the games play out, what the game times are and all those things. But we'll definitely be with you Wednesday night to see how Syracuse recovers from this loss to Colgate and how they start things off in the Battle for Atlantis. And then we'll be here again after the football game next week. We don't have a game time on that yet. The ACC put the 6-day hold on this game time, so we don't know what time it's going to kick off against Pitt next week, but I'm sure we'll find that out at some point tonight. So try and enjoy the rest of your weekend, friends, as Syracuse loses both on the football front, 41-17. Men's basketball loses to Colgate for the first time since John Fitzgerald Kennedy was president of the United States. 100-85 was the final score there. Women's basketball team lost in the Battle for Atlantis, so bad Saturday for Syracuse all around. But we thank you for hanging out with us here tonight. Christopher, as he notes here, when is lacrosse season? I'll tell you what, both of those lacrosse teams are national championship contenders. So hang in there. It's only like 4 months away from lacrosse, right? We'll get there, but plenty more football and basketball to discuss before then. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, folks, on Syracuse basketball and football postgame presented by Krause Health. Please check out all of our coverage on syracuse.com. There's going to be plenty to read tonight and tomorrow from both of these games, from Donna DeToe to Mike Waters, Nate Mink, myself, Chris Carlson, everybody on the coverage of both football and basketball. So we'll keep you busy doing that. We appreciate you reading and subscribing to syracuse.com and watching this show here tonight. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll talk to you again Wednesday night after the Orange take on VCU in the Battle for Atlantis.